right, everyone, buckle up. It's Oscar time, and you know what that means, right?
A deep dive into those nominations.
Bingo. You guys send in a wild mix of videos, articles, even some expert predictions. And let me tell you, this year is a nail-biter.
It's true, the buzz is all about how unpredictable things are.
Unpredictable in a good way.
Oh, absolutely. The critics are saying this is one of the most exciting races in ages. No clear front runners, keeps everyone guessing.
Okay, so suspense is high. Let's jump right into the Best Picture battlefield, shall we? We've got Anora, the Brutalist, Conclave, and Wicked, the musical.
Can't forget Emilia Pérez. That one's causing quite a stir.
Stir in a good way, or
We'll get to that. But first, let's talk about Anora. Seems to be winning hearts with its take on love and relationships. Very relatable.
Gotcha. So Anora for the heartstrings. What about the Brutalist? That title sounds, well, intense.
Oh, it's intense. A two-parter over 3 hours long.
Hmm.
Trauma, resilience, finding meaning in chaos, the heavy stuff.
Whoa, 3 hours. Definitely not a light watch.
Not at all. It's visually stunning, though. People are saying it's not your typical Hollywood flick. More artistic, challenging.
Okay, so we've got heartwarming and heavy. What about Conclave with its Vatican setting? What makes that one stand out?
Conclave is all about power struggles, faith, tough moral choices. Ralph Fiennes as a conflicted cardinal, apparently. He's phenomenal.
So it's like a peek behind the curtain of the Vatican.
Exactly. Lots of intrigue, ethical dilemmas, really makes you think.
I'm loving how these Best Picture nominees each explore such different sides of humanity.
Right. You've got love, darkness, faith, and then there's Wicked. That's bringing a whole other element to the table.
Oh, yeah. You were telling me before we started about how Wicked is making Oscar history with its casting, right?
They've got the first ever trans actor nominated for an Oscar. Huge step for representation and inclusivity in Hollywood.
That's fantastic. And it seems like the film keeps those core Wicked themes, like friendship and defying expectations, while adding its own cinematic twist.
And the music. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Their performances are getting rave reviews. Apparently, they're amazing.
All right, now for the one you called a stir, Emilia Pérez. This one seems to be generating all sorts of buzz. What's the story there?
Okay, Emilia Pérez is definitely the most controversial nominee on this list. Crime drama dives into the world of a trans woman who takes drastic measures to escape a dangerous situation.
Okay, so intense subject matter. I'm seeing some articles that are both praising the film for its boldness and criticizing its approach.
It's a tricky one. Some critics love how it confronts tough issues. Others question the way it handles them. But either way, it sparked a lot of debate.
For sure. It's got people talking, that's for sure. And it's racked up quite a few nominations. Zoe Saldana even snagged a Best Supporting Actress nod for it.
That's right. Lots of nominations, despite all the controversy. It's definitely pushing buttons and making people think.
Okay, we've covered the 5 Best Picture nominees, each unique, thought-provoking in their own way. But a good Oscar season is never complete without some snubs and surprises. What's got everyone buzzing this year?
Well, the biggest snub has to be Selena Gomez. 13 nominations for Emilia Pérez, but she was totally overlooked in the Best Supporting Actress category.
Seriously, that's a surprise. What about other big names? Anyone else missing that we'd expect to see?
Denzel Washington got snubbed, Angelina Jolie, Nicole Kidman too, and get this, even Jonathan Bailey from Wicked, even with a SAG nomination, he didn't make the Oscar cut.
Wow. It seems like the Academy is going in a different direction this year. What do you think it all means?
Hard to say for sure. It seems like maybe they're focusing on new faces, bold performances, pushing boundaries. Could be a sign of what they're prioritizing now.
Interesting. Well, speaking of pushing boundaries, Wicked scored big with those nominations for Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, their first Oscar nods ever.
Absolutely. It's a big deal for them and for the film. And don't forget about Demi Moore. Her comeback in The Substance is getting everyone talking.
Right. A Best Lead Actress nomination for Demi Moore. Talk about a comeback. And what about Coleman Domingo? He's back for a second year in a row with Sing Sing after his nomination last year for Rustin.
Coleman Domingo is on a roll. 2 years, 2 nominations. He's definitely becoming a force in the industry.
I remember something heartwarming from one of the articles you sent about him and one of his Sing Sing co-stars, Henry G. Sanders.
Oh, yeah. Henry G. Sanders, he's 82, lost his home in those California wildfires, and Coleman Domingo stepped up to help.
That's incredible. What did he do?
Domingo offered him a place to stay in London while they were filming Sing Sing. Real support, real community.
That's amazing. It's good to be reminded that even in Hollywood, there's genuine kindness and support behind the scenes.
Absolutely. It's a nice story amidst all the awards buzz.
Speaking of feel-good stories,
Huh.
you mentioned a Colorado connection to this year's Oscars. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so Brady Corbett, the director nominated for The Brutalist, he actually spent part of his childhood in Colorado Glenwood Springs, to be exact.
No way. Small world, huh?
Right, and apparently there's this local bookstore in Glenwood Springs that he credits with sparking his love for the arts.
Ah, that's lovely. It's amazing how those early experiences can shape our passions, isn't it?
It really is. It adds a nice personal touch to his nomination, I think.
All right, we've covered the big contenders, those surprising snubs, heartwarming stories, but let's not forget those intense acting categories. Best Supporting Actor sound like a real battle this year.
Oh, it is. Kieran Culkin has been winning everything for A Real Pain, so he's definitely a frontrunner. But then Adrian Brody won the BAFTA for The Brutalist, beating out Ralph Fiennes, a British cinema legend.
So could Brody be a dark horse in the Oscar race? That's exciting.
Definitely a possibility. It'll be interesting to see if he can pull off another win. And then there's Best Lead Actress. It seems like it's Demi Moore versus Mikey Madison, right?
Mikey Madison's performance in Anora is getting a ton of buzz, especially after her surprise win at the BAFTAs. Do you think she has a chance to upset Demi Moore at the Oscars?
It's going to be a close one, that's for sure. Mikey Madison, she's a rising star, and her performance is getting praised for its honesty, its emotion. But Demi Moore is a legend. The Substance is being called a career-defining role for her.
So another nail-biter. And before we get to predictions, we've got to talk about something big, some big changes to the Oscar ceremony itself this year.
Oh yeah, some interesting stuff going on there.
The big one, no live performances of the nominated songs. That's a huge departure from tradition. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a bold move for sure. I see arguments on both sides.
Lay it on me. What are the pros of ditching the live performances?
Well, it could make the ceremony faster paced, more streamlined, you know? Sometimes those musical numbers can drag on a bit, and with today's short attention spans, maybe they're trying to keep things snappier.
Makes sense, keep the audience engaged. But what about the downsides? What are we losing by cutting the music?
The live performances are a big draw for a lot of people. It's a chance to celebrate the music, the performance itself. And who can forget those iconic Oscar moments, the ones everyone talks about for years?
Exactly. Like Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper with Shallow.
Yeah.
That was pure magic.
Right. Those are the moments that stick with you. So even though I get why they're doing it, I think there's a risk of losing some of the magic, some of the emotion.
It's a tough call.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see how it goes, right?
Hmm.
Maybe it'll lead to a new focus on the filmmaking itself, or maybe people will miss the musical element.
We'll find out soon enough. But even without the live performances, this year's Oscars are going to be memorable.
Speaking of memorable, the Academy's bringing back the Fab Five segments. Remember those?
Oh yeah, the Fab Five moments, a great way to connect the past and present.
Can you refresh my memory and our listeners on what they are exactly?
Instead of just a presenter reading off the nominees, they bring out 5 past winners in each category to talk about the nominees, what they loved about their work, what makes them special.
Oh, yeah. It's like celebrating the history of filmmaking, passing the torch to the next generation.
Boy, it adds so much meaning to the award itself.
Okay, so lots to look forward to with the ceremony. But the biggest question remains, who will win Best Picture? Conclave took home the BAFTA, Anora snagged the Producers Guild Award, and The Brutalist is also a strong contender. So many possibilities.
It really is anyone's game this year. The critics are just as divided as the award shows.
Okay, so no spoilers. We'll all have to tune in on March 2nd to see who takes home the gold. But in the meantime, let's take a closer look at these Best Picture nominees. What are they really about, and why are they capturing our attention?
Let's start with Anora. What's great about this one is how it takes the rom-com genre and turns it on its head. It's raw, honest, a real look at how relationships work in today's world. That's why it's resonating with people. It feels authentic, you know.
It's relatable. What about The Brutalist? What's at the heart of that one?
Oh, The Brutalist is in a different league. 3 hours long, split into 2 parts. It's epic, but it's also dark. Trauma, resilience, finding meaning when everything feels chaotic, that's what it's grappling with. And visually, it's stunning, unlike anything else out there.
So it's a challenging watch, but a rewarding one.
That's it. It's a film that stays with you. Then there's Conclave, set in the Vatican. What makes that one so compelling? Conclave is all about those behind-the-scenes power struggles, the weight of faith, the really tough moral choices people face. It's got amazing performances, especially Ralph Fiennes. It makes you think about truth, about finding meaning in a world where nothing's certain.
Fascinating. All right, now Wicked. It's based on the musical, so it's already got a huge following.
Mhm.
What makes the film adaptation stand out, do you think?
It's staying true to what people love about wicked friendship, acceptance, defying expectations. But the film takes it to a new level. The music is spectacular. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are phenomenal, and the visuals are incredible. It's just a really powerful film with a timeless message that resonates with everyone.
It sounds like a visual and emotional feast. And finally, Emilia Pérez. We know it's controversial, but what's the story at its core?
Emilia Pérez is a crime drama, but it's also a story about identity, about survival. It follows a trans woman who takes a huge risk to escape a dangerous situation, a procedure to become a man.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is. It sparked a lot of discussion about how trans identity is portrayed, about the lengths people go to for freedom. Some people applaud it for tackling tough issues, others question its approach, but it's definitely made an impact.
It sounds like each of these nominees offers a really different perspective on the human experience. No wonder this year's Oscar race is so unpredictable. And you know what? That's what I love about it.
Me too. There's something for everyone, and it really makes you think about what resonates with you, what stories stick with you.
That's a great point. And speaking of things that make you think, I want to throw a question out to our listener.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Think about it. We've got such a mix of nominees this year, from epic dramas to heartwarming musicals, from stories about love to stories about survival. What does this year's Oscar race tell us about the state of cinema? What stories are capturing our attention?
It really is a question worth asking, isn't it? What stories are grabbing us? What's hitting home?
Right. And it makes me think about something else. You know how Dune Part 2 is eligible for Oscars this year, but its score isn't?
Oh, right, because it uses some pre-existing music. Yeah, I read about that.
It got me thinking about all those Oscar rules. Do you think they actually help filmmakers, or do they kind of box them in?
It's a debate, for sure. Some people say rules are crucial, they keep things fair, level the playing field. Like that pre-existing music rule, it's there to stop films with super popular soundtracks from having an unfair advantage.
I get that, but doesn't it also stifle creativity sometimes? What if a director has this amazing idea to use a classic piece of music, but then they're disqualified?
I know, it's a tough one. Sometimes rules can feel so restrictive, but sometimes those limits can spark something new. When you have to work within certain boundaries, it can push you to come up with really innovative solutions.
So it's a balancing act, right? Rules can provide structure, but they can also get in the way if they're not flexible.
Exactly. And the Academy is always having to reassess, are the rules still working? Are they keeping up with how filmmaking is changing?
It's like with streaming, right? The lines are getting blurry between theatrical releases and what people watch at home. It's a whole new world for the Oscars to navigate.
It is, for sure. They have to find ways to be fair, to be inclusive, to support all the different ways people are making and watching films these days.
It's a big responsibility. Okay, let's talk about something a bit more fun, those Fab Five segments. I love those.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little more about what they are and why they're so cool?
Okay, imagine this. You're nominated for Best Actor, right? Right. And instead of some presenter just reading your name, 5 previous Best Actor winners walk out on stage.
Okay, I'm picturing it. This is good.
Yeah. And they each talk about you, about your performance, what moved them, what stood out to them. It's this amazing way of connecting the past and the present, like a lineage of great acting.
Passing the torch. And it makes winning that award even more meaningful, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just a statue. It's becoming part of this legacy of amazing performances.
So we've talked about the nominees, the changes to the ceremony, but I'm curious, from your perspective, what are you most excited about? What do you want to see happen on March 2nd?
Honestly, it's the suspense. We have no idea who's going to win. Every category is wide open. It's like a real-life drama unfolding.
That's what makes it so much fun to watch. And it says something, doesn't it? That there's so much talent out there, so many great films to choose from.
It really does. It's a great time to be a film fan. There's so many filmmakers pushing boundaries, telling stories that really connect with people.
Before we move on to the last part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listener with something to think about.
I'm listening.
Okay, here it is. With so much variety in the nominations this year and the winners from other award shows all over the place, what do you think this year's Oscar race tells us about cinema, about the stories that are connecting with people right now? What's grabbing our attention? What themes, what performances? It really makes you think, doesn't it? What's resonating with us? What's making an impact? And it leads perfectly into something I wanted to explore, some of the trends we're seeing in film. How they're playing out in this year's Oscars.
Oh, I'm all ears. You always have such insightful observations about those bigger trends.
Well, one thing that's been on my mind is how many films are breaking away from those typical storytelling formulas. Like The Brutalist, 3 hours long, split into two parts, a totally unique structure. It's not your average Hollywood movie.
Right. And Emilia Pérez, too. It's tackling a really complex subject matter, trans identity, in a way we haven't seen before. It seems like audiences are hungry for stories that challenge them, make them think.
I think so too. And it's not just about the stories themselves, but who's telling them. We're seeing more inclusivity, more diversity, both in front of and behind the camera, like with Wicked and that historic nomination.
Absolutely. And it's not just about checking boxes, it's about bringing those diverse voices to the forefront, letting them tell their stories authentically. It makes the whole cinematic experience richer for everyone.
It's so important. And it's great to see the Academy recognizing that, rewarding those filmmakers who are pushing boundaries both in terms of storytelling and representation.
Right.
It feels like the definition of what makes a great film is evolving.
It is, for sure. The Academy's catching up with what audiences want, what resonates with them, and filmmakers are responding. They're telling those stories. They're pushing those boundaries.
It's exciting to see. We talked earlier about how the Oscars are a human construct, reflecting the values of the Academy members. With all that's changing in film and in the world, do you think the Oscars are still relevant? Do they still matter?
That's the big question, isn't it? They've definitely faced criticism, especially about diversity and representation. But I do think they're trying. They're making an effort to change, to adapt.
What makes you say that?
Well, just look at the nominees this year. So much variety, so many different voices, and the Academy itself is becoming more diverse. It's a slow process, but I think it's moving in the right direction.
So there's hope for the Oscars yet.
I think so. They still have a huge influence. They can spark important conversations, and they can inspire the next generation of filmmakers. But they have to keep evolving, keep reflecting the world we live in.
Couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the 2025 Oscar nominations. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, to dissect all the details and get your insights.
The feeling is mutual. I always learn so much from our conversations.
And to our listener, thank you for sending in all those amazing sources. It's been a wild ride. And as you watch the ceremony on March 2nd, remember, it's more than just an award show. It's a reflection of us, of our culture, of what stories we value. Keep those conversations going, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep loving film.
Cheers to that.